notice. Stephanie's, I think, the only mod in at the moment. I did specifically contact her, but we're only going to really be here for as long as Stephanie's here, and I think Stephanie's here for a little bit over an hour. So I think we need to get going. Just a quick hi to a lot of the members who are here. Nisi, good to see you. Terry Dean, a new patron on Patreon. Thought Criminal. Thought Criminal is a member for 3 months. Nice going. Pauline Buckles, Real Batman, good to see you. And Sunflowers as well. So I guess I'm going to start off with saying, I'm going to quote F. Scott Fitzgerald. I just want to sort of frame the thing that I'm going to say. F. Scott Fitzgerald said, the test of a first-rate intelligence is the ability to hold two opposing ideas in the mind at the same time. And I would take it a little bit further than that. I would say, the test of a first-rate intelligence is not only the ability to hold two opposing ideas, but the length of time that you can do that. So in other words, how long you can sort of hold off coming to an absolute decision on something that is, let's say, not clear. So in other words, your ability to reserve judgment in certain things. And examples of that are like your own relationship with someone. You know, if you get married and things aren't working out and that person's got a different view to you, how long are you able to tolerate, put up with, be patient with, discover, and not only that, from their side as well, who you are, who they are. How long are you able to sort of abide one another while you sort of realize, well, we are really not the same, before you sort of reach an absolute decision where you say, well, it's over, I'm going to get divorced, or it's not working out, right? So that's really the way I want to sort of frame this, is to say the test of a first-rate intelligence is, first of all, the ability to have two different opposing ideas in your mind, right? And then also for how long you can do that, for how long you can kind of have them in your mind and sort of competing with one another. And in a way, that is really the job of a court and a jury and a judge, is to have these two opposing narratives in the same room, but also in one's mind. And you don't say anything, you don't participate, you simply absorbing the one narrative and the other narrative. And you are collating, you're getting the information in, and you sort of, slowly gathering intelligence for the time where you're going to say, well, okay, I think I've got enough now. Where does that leave us, right? That's really how this trial is going to work out, right? So with that in mind, let me ask you guys, and I hope you guys are going to give me a positive answer here. Well, let me first ask the following. How many of you guys saw the video that I put up about the most powerful moment? Have you guys watched the video, The Most Powerful Moment? Did you guys check that out? Raven says, everyone please be nice. Cynthia says yes. Melanie says yes. Stephanie says yes. Pauline Buckles says 1. Zircon says yes. Okay, so quite a few of you. So let me ask you, did you understand that video? I guess another way of putting it is, what did you think was this most powerful moment? Or were you like, what is this? What is the most powerful moment? Right? So did you get what I was conveying there, or do you need me to sort of explicate that and sort of explain that? Sunflower says yes. Yvonne says yes. Marta says yes. I don't see a no. Sharon Drury, I think you're saying yes. So it looks like a lot of you. Cynthia says she hasn't. Corin Sanderson, A from Wisconsin. Nisi says she understood. That's good to hear. Terry, the question is, did you understand what the most powerful moment was in that video? So there was no narration. I didn't say anything. I watched it. I felt something, and then I put it up, and I hope that you guys would see the same thing. Obviously, you had to pay attention to see it, so Sunflower says, please explain. Marta says, please explain. Wait, what says, I got it. Hebe Jeeby said, not really. Wait, what says, I got it. Can you say what you got? Like, can you... Stephanie says, difference in their demeanor in the snapshot compared to the moment that you shared. Not sure if that's quite it. Okay. Let me just pull something up here quickly. Okay. So, to be fair, to be honest, to be clear, I was watching the Amber Heard testimony when I sort of observed this moment, and I was like, wow, that was powerful. And then I obviously had it still playing, so she hadn't finished testifying. And I was like, wow, could that have been the most powerful moment of all the testimony? And of course, she hasn't even finished testifying, right? So the reality was that I made this video. I first of all recognized the moment, and I made the video halfway through that afternoon's testimony. And then as the afternoon wore on, I sort of kind of had second thoughts, and I thought, I think this is going to be the second most powerful moment, because I think the testimony is going to end, her testimony is going to end on a high note. It's going to end like with a grand finale, and there's going to be like a flourish. There's going to be a powerful sort of finale. There's going to be tears. There's going to be some sort of reveal. There's going to be some kind of twist. And it sort of did. There was sort of kind of an emotional moment to me. I don't know what you are doing. I'm going to put you down. And there was a bit of a flourish. There were a couple of photos that were shown, but I don't know whether it was the one side, the prosecution. I don't know if it was them objecting that sort of seemed to disrupt the momentum, but it seemed to not quite build up to a finale. There was a bit of drama. There seemed to be a more emotional sort of dramatic story, and there were some photos, but there was nevertheless kind of a flourish. And she described the bed that was sort of broken, and at one point Amber Heard described blood being all over the room and herself fighting for her life. That's how I understood it. But the photos, when she showed them, so she kind of first told the story and then they showed the photos, I thought the photos seemed quite mild compared to her story. I mean, maybe in my imagination I was over-imagining, but the photos seemed kind of mild. And maybe it's also because I'm used to crime scenes involving homicides and, criminal law level things, not civil law. And this is a civil case. So, So basically what happened was I wondered whether this evidence, these photos, while it was happening and the testimony around it, I was wondering, was this going to build up to a more powerful moment, right? And the moment I'm actually talking about is the moment Amber described Johnny on her wedding day, right? she described him as so handsome, and you could actually see him react. So it's not just what she was saying and what she was doing. It was actually, I could be wrong, but either the first time that you saw real emotion from him, or certainly one of the first times that he seemed moved. Maybe he was uncomfortable, maybe he was something else, but I thought I could see a reaction. And it wasn't her criticizing him. She was talking about her wedding day and the moment that she saw him, on her wedding day, and she described him as so handsome. And you immediately saw him react because those panes are side by side. And I thought that he was becoming emotional, and then he actually quickly glanced at her. Now, if you compare that just to the previous day, when he didn't actually seem to look at her a single time, and he had his glasses on virtually the entire time. Now, in terms of this, I don't think he even had his glasses on. So you saw him move and then quickly glance at her. And so that is what felt really powerful to me in terms of them, right? I don't know, you might say, I didn't find that powerful at all, or I didn't even notice it. I'm talking about what it felt like for her to say that and for him to hear her say that in this context. It's this context of that they hate one another, that they are at each other's throats, that they're singing accusations. And she describes him as so handsome, basically a very desirable partner, and how in love with him she is, right? And when it's your wedding day, you're filled with that whole fairy tale thing. And so that was the part that really stood out to me. I could see him becoming emotional. I saw him look at her, and you could sort of see his chest move with breathing with that emotion. So that's why I say for him, I think it was a powerful and moving moment. And I think you've got to also acknowledge most powerful moment is a relative concept. May not be powerful for you. Thanks a lot, Ravenkind. It may not be powerful for you, but is it powerful for them? Is something happening when she's speaking that moves him? I don't mean moves him in a way of anger, but just in a way of almost remembering something in a meaningful way or a strong way, right? And when I put this together, I actually wrote something on Patreon. I said, this moment is actually preceded by some of the first tears we've seen in this trial. I saw the tears. I don't really know when people argue and they say they photoshopped or they didn't see a single tear. I don't know whether, were you not looking? Are you arguing for argument's sake? Are you trying to be absolute? Do you really believe there weren't any tears? Did you just not notice it? Were you not really paying attention? That whole argument about tears, it's like, if you can see the tears in the live stream video, and you could sort of see them 3 or 4 times in the live stream, in the original live stream, you can't say that that's Photoshop, because how would you know that it would be there to Photoshop it? How do you Photoshop live video? So anyway, I was obviously looking at it very closely. I've been trained to watch people very closely because I've sat in on trials, and I've watched people like a hawk when certain things are said. And sometimes you think that they're showing absolutely no emotion. And what I found really amazing when I covered one particular case, on the live stream, so I was actually sitting in the court when it happened, right? And I observed something, but when I watched it in the live stream, I was like, why am I not seeing what I actually saw in court? And what I'm talking about is I could see the emotion on this guy's face when something was happening. And yet in the live stream, there's like no trace of it. And I played it over and over again. I was like, wow, is this like a magic trick? I don't see it at all. But one of the ways you can sometimes see emotion, and you often see it when sentences being read out, because it means a lot to somebody when the sentence is read out. Either you're off the hook, or you going to jail, or you're going to owe 5 million or 50 million, whatever. But the thing that was quite interesting was you could see the chest moving against the shirt, and then that was a sign that the person's breathing. You could sometimes see a vessel in the neck kind of throbbing, right? Anyway, I'm just saying there's some of those things that don't really translate between the courtroom and what you're seeing on a slightly pixelated screen. And so I do wonder what the jury are seeing and how they're perceiving these people in front of them. You must bear in mind, if you have any feelings towards either of these celebrities, you might have the same thing with the jury, and they're sitting right by them. They're able to. Can you imagine if you really sort of not head over heels, but totally into one of these celebrities, and you're getting to see them all day, every day, because you're a member of the jury? That's got to be quite a good feeling. But you've now got to hold two opposing views in your mind at the same time. I really admire this person. I really love this person. I think they're really amazing. But listen to what is being said about them, right? You've got to almost park that somewhere. Okay, Timmy, I'm going to let you resume your position, but try and behave. So, so really that was the moment. And let me ask you guys again. Did you see that without me prompting you? Did you see that that powerful moment was the moment she spoke about him being so handsome on her wedding day? Did you guys feel that? Did you see that? Daniela says, what do you think about the lack of evidence? So when I see a statement like that, I kind of just don't understand it, because it's like, so in the trial in the UK, and there were two, there was an original trial based on what the Sun said, and then Johnny Depp appealed that. Do you think there was no evidence in that case? I mean, I've read a little bit about the case, and I know what was, okay, Timmy, and I know what was some of the highlights of that. Do you think they found for Amber Heard twice because there was just no evidence? Do you think it was just like, okay, it was just our opinion, we believe you? Do you think that court in the UK was like, it's like, we just don't, we don't need evidence, we'll just kind of come to our reasoning without evidence? Does that answer your question? Like, do you think in a court, when someone is putting up exhibits, right, and it's got a number, do you think that's not evidence? And when you're giving a date and a time, and you're mentioning a witness, and you're giving the location, and you're describing your story, do you think that's not evidence? So, and you've been doing that for 2-3 hours, can you say there's no evidence, like as this absolute statement? I just find that like a mind job, like did I miss something? Does that make sense, Daniela, or do you still need me to sort of expand on that? So Laurie Brown says UK laws are different and the Sun is owned by royals. Okay, so you're kind of saying the law in the UK means absolutely nothing, and blah blah blah. Okay, so that's pretty interesting. Okay, so yeah, I mean, you can do that. You can ask a question, then you can make a rational argument, and then you can dismiss it with the simplest thing. You can say, yeah, but the law in Italy, like with the Amanda Knox case, it means absolutely nothing. I don't know if it does to Italians. I don't know if it does to to people in the UK to say, oh, the law in the UK just is absolutely meaningless. Okay. But it's easy to say that because it benefits, I think, the point you're trying to make in this trial. But then you've also got to say, so why is Hollywood taking the position that they're taking, right? Why is Hollywood taking the position that they're taking? Is it also because they're owned by the royals or something? Stars says, I believe people want real physical evidence is the concern. So is a text, remember this is a civil case, not a criminal case, is a text where somebody says and admits something, is that not evidence? So it's like, it's not, it's a time-stamped text or it's a time-stamped email where someone admits they do something, is that not evidence? But I think the argument about evidence sort of reveals itself, for example, when when Amber Heard is on trial in court, and she's crying, and then you say, well, no, she's not crying. So what you're really saying there is, if you do show me evidence, I'm not going to believe it, or I'm going to find some way to undermine it. So those aren't tears, or if they are tears, they're real, or if they are tears, they acted, or what is it? They photoshopped. So in other words, if you show evidence, you'll just say, no, I just don't accept it. But then why do I need to show evidence? I think the other side to that whole argument is, do you really want to hear evidence because people had made up their mind while she was testifying and even before she was testifying? So if there's like a document, right, this is the document with absolutely all the evidence, do you actually want to look at it, or do you actually not want to look at it? It's like, I just want to say over and over again that there's no evidence. I'm just wondering what you guys think. So basically the bottom line, this is really the reason why I brought this up. In terms of that most powerful moment, what I saw as the most powerful moment was when you are kind, that's when you often break down barriers, right? It's when you are antagonistic and, I don't know, just in a combative mode, you get the defenses of the other person up. But when you're kind, that's often when you break down the barriers. And so, yeah, they are in a very combative situation. I don't know if you guys have seen, thanks a lot for that, Batman. I don't know if you guys have seen some photos of Amber Heard. I think I've actually got it as the title to this video, the title photo to this video. It's taken from behind. I've actually seen the photography. He's like got quite a long lens. I've been in the same position as him, sitting in court with this big long lens camera, trying to get the light and all that kind of thing, trying not to get a blurry image. In any event, because courtrooms are quite dark quite often, in any event, he takes this really good photo, which is sort of over Johnny Depp's head, over the ponytail. And you can appreciate from that perspective that Amber Heard is right in front of him. So it's almost like there's nowhere else to look at because he's sitting there and right in front of him is Amber Heard. And on the other hand, she's also got nowhere to look at in a way because right in front of her, that's where he's sitting, right? So you would imagine someone who's talking about you or you talking about someone that you would occasionally look at them and they would occasionally look at you, just naturally. Especially if it's going on for hours and hours, you'd think, well, you would really look at them now and then while they're saying this about you and saying that about you. That's just a separate argument. But the point I'm trying to make is when you're kind in a situation that is so combative and hostile, that's often when you break down barriers. And you did sense that emotion, that almost a little bit of a release of emotion, hearing something nice about him. And that's really my point, right? So, Stephanie, do me a favor. If someone asks a question or I miss it, just at me, and I'll try and make sure that I don't miss it. Okay. So that was like a long intro. It was supposed to be about 5 minutes. It took 25 minutes. But now I'm going to deal with this idea of them being equally yoked or indeed unequally yoked. So let me put it to you guys. Do you guys think that Johnny and Amber, let's say, were equally yoked? So let's say at the time that the Rum Diary was filmed, at the time that they sort of met, would you say that they were equally yoked? Yes or no? Sageti Nona says no. What do you guys think? Do you know what I mean by equally yoked? Do you think that they were equally yoked when they met? Zircon says no. I think you guys basically know what I'm talking about. Terry Dean says no. Diane says yes. Daniela says no way. Liesel McGuire says they were equally yoked. Okay, so there's some disagreement here. Nisi says no. Linda says no. Suzanne says no. Cynthia, what did Cynthia say? Equally yoked. It basically means almost, there are different ways you could describe it, but are you at the same level? Are you at the same level of status? Are you at the same level as sort of human beings? Are you pulling the same load? Are you dealing with the same stuff? Are you from the same, are you in the same situation in a way? Are you dealing with the same circumstances? Is the load you're pulling the same as somebody else's, right? So I've seen quite a few no's, but I've also seen a couple of yeses. Irish Eye says equally yoked means to the same extent. It's a little bit more than that, but I'm going to get to that in a second. So Cynthia says no, they weren't. Stephanie's already answering the question, saying Johnny Depp had a much greater status or stardom. That's a really good point. Beverly Lawyer says Depp was really in love with Amber. I think that's true, but I also think it's true the other way around. I think when it happened, it was an incredible relationship. And if you're not sure, I have done a bit of research. I did go and watch the Rum Diary, and he looks, he's a lot younger than, I think it was about 10 years ago. He looks really handsome, and he looks really suave and young, and, and she looks incredible. And the role that she plays is this sort of vixen, almost like this wild force of nature. I'm not quite sure how that character is described in the book, The Rum Diary, but that's certainly the impression one gets. And so I don't know if you guys know the backstory is that he worked with the writer. What is the writer's name of the Rum Diary? Let's test you guys on that. Quite a famous writer. I think he also wrote something about, something about Vegas. What's that book about Vegas that the same writer wrote? That's right, Hunter S. Thompson. And so Hunter S. Thompson died, but Johnny Depp took over making the book into the movie thing, and then he was responsible for casting Amber Heard as the character in the Rum Diary. That's right, Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. Okay, thanks for helping me out with that, Terry. Okay, and so he actually cast her. He cast her in this role, and if you remember his testimony, he said something like they'd sort of, I don't know if she'd auditioned 5 times, but they'd tested her, maybe screen tested her a couple of times, and they still weren't sure, and that they wanted Johnny Depp to decide. And then he said, well, instead of doing another screen test or another audition, I want to meet her, I want to talk to her, I want to see how she responds to me, kind of thing. And then that sort of was that settled things, right? But the point is that I think you could argue, she may say something else, but I think you could argue that it was thanks to Johnny Depp that she got a big break, that this was her first major role. And you can also imagine that she was incredibly grateful for it, that he saw something in her, and maybe what he saw in her was authentic and legitimate and real. And kudos to him because he did see it in her. And that's one of the things she said she loved about him, was that he recognized who she was and she recognized who he was. And so that was while things were going great. But in terms of the question, were they equally yoked? You can imagine if it's up to him to decide, I'm going to cast you in my movie or not, and I'm going to be the lead actor. He's kind of got all the power. So in other words, he kind of snaps his fingers and a switch is flicked, and basically her life changes in that moment. She becomes cast in a big movie opposite a big star, and thus her film career is launched. I don't really know too much about her film career, but you can definitely see that as a major moment in it. And it's thanks to him. And so certainly at that point, he's the big star and she's kind of an unknown starlet. And so they are absolutely unequally yoked in that situation. But it's not just that. There are many dimensions to this whole question of yoking. And so the first, I think, is the age difference between the two. The fact that he's older means he's, to some extent, got more power in the industry because he's been in the industry longer. He's been he's been in movies longer. His filmography is longer. His audience is bigger as a result of that. And she's younger and she's just starting off. So that's a big difference, just in terms of his pulling power compared to her pulling power. But obviously his pulling power will be much greater after 10 or 20 movies than hers would be after one movie or in her first movie. And so also the fact that she's 22 years younger than him means, in a way, he can be her guide, he can be her mentor, he can be a confidant, he can be also someone who gives her future breaks or gives her future, how can I put it? Not opportunities, but sort of opens doors. He can call up someone and more opportunities can open up. And if you're an actress and you want to make it, then that's going to be great, whether it's a friend or someone who's more than a friend. So it's going to be, to some extent, you could argue that it's a relationship from her side. You could argue that it could be a relationship of, I don't want to say convenience, but a relationship where you derive great benefit from this relationship. And then again, you come back to this thing of, can you have two thoughts in your mind at the same time? So in other words, can you be in a relationship that's good for you, where you benefit, where there are connections, thanks Beverly, but also love that person, also be like in awe of them, also admire them? Or are they mutually exclusive? Can you love someone and use them or ask for their help, if you don't want to use the word use? Can you love someone and ask someone to help you? Or are they mutually exclusive? And the other way around as well. Johnny Depp being with this young woman, why was he with her? Was he with her because of her status? If you say no, so you might say, was she with him because of his status? Maybe you say yes. But then would you say, well, was he with her because of her status? right? And you could answer that maybe for him it was totally different. Maybe it was chemistry. But then you'd say, so did she feel no chemistry? I'm sure that she did. But who felt the most chemistry in this scenario of she's 20 years younger? Right now, he's 58, she's 36. In 2 years, he's going to be 60. In 2 years, she's sort of, still in her 30s, right? So there's a big unequally yoked scenario just in terms of their age. He's more senior. He's been around the block. I think he'd been married 1 or 2 times. Did he marry Winona Ryder? But he was in a serious relationship with her and with Vanessa Paradis. And, I guess she'd also been, but you can just generally assume that older people have a lot more relationships in the time that they've been mature than much younger people, just that in general. And as a result of that, someone who's had lots of relationships might be more jaded, paranoid, insecure, embittered, maybe not. Someone who's not had many relationships or not been married that many times may be a little bit naive. But in a scenario where you have a much older person and a much younger person, good to see you not there yet. Thanks a lot for that. I'm just saying, whether you want to bring the age down a heck of a lot or you want to push the age up a lot, someone who's older can sometimes be, how can I put it, can pull strings in a way that you may not be aware. It works both ways. Sometimes a younger person can do the same thing, that they may hide their social media or they may do things in that sense, right? But anyway, so that's youth. The next aspect where I think you can have the discussion about unequally yoked is substances, right? And I'm not going to say one way or the other. I know you've got your opinions. I've also got my opinion, but I'm not really going to share it here. Just that I believe that one of the two was more using substances in a more extreme way than the other one was, and that creates a disparity already. It creates, have you ever been in a situation where you go to a party? I was actually supposed to go to a party myself this evening and I didn't go. But you go to a party and when you get there, everyone's already had a few drinks and you feel like you're quite behind, right? Can you imagine that in a everyday sense, like every day? So in terms of substances, one person can be both better at handling them, or like they can take a lot more than you can, or that's just part of their lifestyle, but it's not so much part of yours. And so there's an unequal yoking there from both sides. Like, I want you to party with me. Why are you such a stick in the mud? On the other hand, why must you always be drunk and high? Why can't we just enjoy one another without this all the time, kind of thing? And I've actually been in a situation like that where I confronted a girlfriend and I said, how come whenever we do stuff together, it's sort of with alcohol? Why does alcohol always have to be part of this? And she really didn't like that. And not long after that, we broke up. But substances can definitely be a big part of unequal yoking. And it doesn't necessarily have to be chemicals and alcohol or whatever. It can also be anything that one person's addicted to that the other one is. So one can be addicted to fitness, jogging or whatever, or looking good, and the other one isn't really interested in that. Or someone's interested in eating healthy, but the other one isn't, like Chris Watts and Shanann Watts. Or someone's interested in whatever it is that they're addicted to, but the other one isn't. That's going to create an unequal yoking. You can especially see unequal yoking if the addictions differ. The other thing that I think is quite interesting, and I may have missed it, but I did pick up where Amber Heard was describing Johnny on this and Johnny on that. And she also mentioned all the substances that he was using. Now, you might be sitting there saying, well, that's not evidence. I don't believe that. If she's cross-examined on that, and I don't know if they will, but if they cross-examine her on that, the whole idea will be, you mentioned this substance, he never ever used it. He mentioned that substance, he never ever used it. You mentioned that substance, he never ever used it, that one and that one and that one. Or it's true. Or someone can testify that I actually saw him using that one and that one and that one and that one, whatever. But the issue being quite a few substances were listed: Quaaludes, cocaine, marijuana, alcohol. I can't really remember all of them, but speed, this and that, and the next one. And so quite a few that were sort of listed. Stephanie Jody asks, could anyone ever be equally yoked then? So that's quite a good question. Can anyone ever be equally yoked? It's a really good question. I think the answer is you can be more equally yoked to some people than others. And I think you can tell that quite early on, if you sort of are a good fit, if you don't have to work that hard on being together, right? It's not work, it sort of just works. I'm not saying you never have to work, but I think the other side to that is over time, I think it's almost inevitable that unequal yoking occurs. And if you are a good fit and you start to become unequally yoked, I think you've got to recognize the signs and symptoms and kind of go, yeah, MDMA, that's right. Mushrooms as well, that's true. You've got to recognize those symptoms and you've kind of got to go, do I want this to work? Well, then I might need to give that up, or I might need to do that less, or I might need to be more accommodating of this thing that this person's doing, or I may need to join this person on their journey, right? Maybe I must give up on my journey and go with them on theirs, or vice versa. In other words, if you're becoming unequally yoked, there's a way to kind of interrogate that and say, we're drifting apart. I don't like that. I don't want that. How do you feel? Are you willing to work with me on that? So, it's a negotiated settlement. I don't think equal yoking is a lifetime thing that's guaranteed. I think you do need to work on it, but, there's certain things that can definitely help the process along. And that brings us to a very important one. And I think it's possibly the most important one in terms of this case. In other words, the reason there's unequal yoking, I believe, in their relationship in this particular area is why we're sitting in court now. And let me see if you guys know what I'm getting at. So I've spoken about youth, I've spoken about substances, and now there's a third one. What do you think this issue is, which is at the center? It's really what the jury have got to decide, is what this case is all about. What do you think this third issue is that makes them unequally yoked in quite a fundamental sense? Which one do you think it is? Nisi says age. Well done, Daniela. Daniela says money. Stephanie says, not there yet, says 1 month. Is this case a fair playing field? Not quite sure what you mean by that. Okay, so Corin Sanderson says money. Yep. Stephanie says gender. That's also a really good, it's a good point to make. Yvonne Phillips says money and power. It's also Thought Criminal says fame. Terry Dean says upbringing. Okay, so Becky Hill says wealth. That's also a really good answer. Jean H says money. Okay. Cecilia Yang says emotional maturity. So I think the answer is money, right? I'll give you a little bit of background. I don't know what Johnny Depp was worth when he met Amber Heard, and I don't know what Amber Heard was worth, but what I can tell you now is that, and they sort of, all of this played out 5, 6, 7 years ago, right? Now, Johnny Depp is worth $100 million, and that's almost twice as much as Alec Baldwin, right? So a very successful act in terms of how much money is earned. Johnny Depp's worth $100 million. At one time he was pretty much the highest paid actor in Hollywood. That's not an easy mountain to climb. I don't know how long he was on there, but anyway, so right now he's worth about $100 million. And by the way, I think she's suing him for $100 million, which is quite interesting. So let me ask you, how much do you think Amber Heard is worth without Googling it? Johnny Depp is worth $100 million now. What do you think Amber Heard is worth now? Donna McLeod asks, what does equally yoked means? It means basically having the same status, but it's quite a lot more than that. Nisi says 3 million. Ravenkind says no idea. Thought Criminal says Anne-Marie also says 3 million. Cecilia says 30 million. Okay. So Thought Criminal says 5 million. That's quite a good guess. From what I understand, Amber Heard is worth 8 million. You're right, Stephanie. Yeah, 8 million. Jody C says at least 20 million. Okay, so Amber Heard was paid, I think, $5 million for a role in Aquaman. Aquaman made $1 billion, right? Big movie. I don't know how many movies Johnny Depp has made that have made $1 billion. How many Pirates movies have hit the $1 billion mark? Maybe there are a couple. But anyway, Amber Heard was paid $5 million for Aquaman. I suspect she'll make easily 3 times that in Aquaman 2, if not more. Faticus, thanks a lot for that. Faticus, are you yawning or are you shouting? But anyway, thanks a lot for that. So, and then she also made a little bit out of the Rum Diary. And so altogether, she's worth about 8 million. So Johnny Depp's worth 10 times more based on what we know, based on what is estimated sort of in the media. Johnny Depp's worth 10 times more money than Amber Heard. And I think quite a few people would be surprised by that. I think quite a few people would think she's worth half as much as he is or a quarter, but she's actually worth less than a tenth, which is, raising sunglasses and cheering. Thanks a lot. She's worth less than a tenth right now in terms of earnings based on what is presented in the media. So Johnny Depp suing her for 50 million means even if the jury award a fraction of that, that would still be a large chunk of the money that she's earned so far, wouldn't it? Whereas, anyway, so just in terms of where we are right now, the yoking between the two is he's worth a fortune and she's not really worth very much. I don't really know what the divorce settlement was. I don't know whether she got anything in the divorce. I think there may have been use of apartments. I don't know if she got to own them. I don't know whether she got much in the way of maintenance. I don't really know what the outcome of that was, but it looks like she's worth 8 million. Otherwise, if she'd taken half of his earnings in the divorce, she would be worth maybe 58, but she's not. In any event, in terms of money, you can see that there's a massive difference, even today, of his power financially compared to her power financially. They're both multimillionaires, but in orders of magnitude, he's much, much more wealthy than she is. And that, I think, was another thing that played into the power structure of their relationship. He owns an island, he owns all these penthouses, and, can you imagine living in a house or wherever you live, and then you have this opportunity to spend Christmas on a tropical island, or have your office on the top floor of a building in Hollywood or wherever it is, and you can kind of, you almost like the king. It's like your domain. You've got this massive office with massive windows and massive space, and an entire floor or an entire sort of apartment is just your wardrobe. And so you go from this sized existence to incredible. It's like this incredible change. And all of these forces, so if you're unequally yoked like that, and you're in a relationship and you've gotten married, all of these forces are playing into that, where you are, maybe you could say that someone is greedy, or you may say someone is in awe of this incredible luxury and this incredible spread. And who wouldn't be? Who wouldn't sort of want to get used to that? Who wouldn't want to become more and more familiar with that? Who wouldn't want to be allowed the keys to that kingdom? And I think the answer is everybody. But bear in mind, Johnny earned this. So, because he was older, Johnny had accumulated all of this wealth and properties and pleasure pads kind of thing, like the island. And so someone who's new to that, it's like, no, I want to jump into this lifestyle. I'm a movie star. I want to be a movie star. I want a movie star life. And then when things don't go well, do you think it's so easy just to go, oh, this isn't working out, bye-bye, I'm going to do the right thing, I'm out? Or are you going to feel conflicted? Are you going to feel, what am I going to do, right? Do you see what my point with that? And so I'm not surprised that this case is really a case about money. You said this, I want so much money from you. You said that, I want so much money from you. It's not just going one way, it's also going both ways. But when she testified and she said about, although he'd already treated her the way that he had, and he kind of, she was like, the penny had dropped. She said when she testified, kind of, I'm paraphrasing, but she kind of said, although I knew better than that, I didn't want to give up Christmas on this island. I wanted to have Christmas on the island. I wanted that experience. I'd done it once and I wanted to do it again. So I don't know if you've been in that situation where you're in a relationship, it's not working out. You can see the fine print. You can also kind of see the finish line, or the finish line is behind you, but you just can't let go, and you don't want to let go, because the alternative is, it's almost like being at a concert in a stadium, and the alternative is sitting at home by yourself watching TV. You know you should leave, but you're going to totally miss the party. And that's the situation that you're in. Do you understand what I'm getting at? And the fact that she said that was, I think, quite a admission to say, but I mean, you can kind of understand it, to say, I knew better, but she didn't say she was greedy, but she said, I wanted more. And who wouldn't? Who wouldn't want more? And that brings us to the next element of Unequally Yoked, which is fame. Because Johnny Depp is so famous, it means he gets to to navigate a certain strata of society that many of us don't. In other words, you meet certain directors, certain other movie stars, certain other mega celebrities like J.K. Rowling, and who wouldn't want to mix with these really interesting, exciting, exceptional people. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of Johnny Depp. I really enjoyed him in Edward Scissorhands, and what else was he in that I thought was pretty good? Anyway, Edward Scissorhands I thought he was really good in. What's that one? Not Creepy Hollow. Not Sleepy Hollow. I also thought that was pretty good. I'm just trying to think. There was another movie he was in that I thought he was quite good, but I really liked him in Edward Scissorhands. But I would schmooze up to Johnny Depp to kind of meet J.K. Rowling. I could see myself doing that. And that's just one person. And so can you imagine all of these people who, the longer that you are with that person, the longer you get to have these incredible experiences. And you can say, are you using that person? Yeah, you are. Is she being used for something? I don't know. But that's just my point, is that you get these perks by staying in the dynamic, even though the dynamic's not really working, right? The fame means you get access to this incredible lifestyle. I don't really think people are turning on their imagination machines in their mind, like imagining what is the full experience like for him, what's the full experience like for her, and what's the full experience like for them. You see them in court and you think you know who they are, but it's a totally different life to what we know. And it's like a wonderful life. She said this quite a few times. She said what an incredible life she had when she was with him for that year. And can you imagine how hard that is to walk away from? And ultimately she did. She filed the divorce paper. So ultimately, after all was said and done, she did say, I can't do this anymore. And she did walk away from it. She wasn't kicked out, she left. And it's leaving a lot. It's not just leaving this guy that you love, but it's also leaving all of that other stuff. All of that incredible stuff that is associated with that, all the paraphernalia, right? And I think, although this is on a grand scale, some of that stuff applies to us in our little lives, where you meet someone who's more powerful, richer, whatever than you, and that can open doors to a better life. And who doesn't want a better life? And it works both ways. You want a better life through your partner, and they want a better life through you. But there's also, do you recognize me and do I recognize you? That's also part of it. But there are also other things going on. So it's not just one thing or the other, which brings us back to the test of a first-rate intelligence is you keep different ideas in your mind at the same time. It's not just one dimension. It's not just one thing. And that brings us from the fame dynamic, and he was far more famous than her. And to be honest, I think if I was actually on holiday about 2 weeks ago, it seems like longer, and the Johnny Depp case came onto the news, and someone, quite a pretty girl actually, was asking about what I was doing, and I told her I was a true crime creator on YouTube, and she said, well, are you going to cover this case? And I said, probably not. But I think something I've learned between then and now is how famous Johnny Depp is and how not famous Amber Heard is. I think if you had to ask me what's the biggest thing you've learned since the past 2 weeks when you've paid attention to this, because I would say I didn't realize Johnny Depp is so fanatically and obsessively and what's the word, just intensely famous and adored, and his fandom of that this incredible army, but not only that Amber Heard is actually not. And I can tell you, I put up a couple of videos providing my sincere impression of the case, and I haven't really gotten support. I don't feel like there's an Amber Heard army that is sort of assembled and come to my channel. There doesn't seem to be anything like that. So just through that, I can tell her fame level is definitely a lot lower. Also, I know my audience, the true crime audience, is largely women, and I don't know if it's a thing of the younger woman is despised no matter what she does. I don't know. You guys could answer that better than me. I know that's true with Nicole Kessinger, where she is absolutely despised, even though, and it seems obvious to me, but maybe it's not, the perpetrator in that case is a man, but let's rather hate the young woman. Is it the NK effect here as well? I don't know. You must introspect to answer that question. And then that brings us, we go from the fame thing to the power thing. And in terms of the power dynamic, I think that is a very interesting question. And I think it's one that I don't know if people have imagined very well either, because again, you've got to think about it from the perspective, not from your perspective, just looking at these individuals, but from their perspective. How powerful, think about power in terms of the relationships you've had where you've had no power. And think about power where you have had a lot of power, and also how power can change over time. Amber's just made this movie, Aquaman, that made $1 billion. Her powerlessness has definitely changed. She's definitely become a more prominent player in Hollywood as a result of that one movie. But in terms of the relationship 7 years ago, think about power in terms of all the different permutations of power. Money is power. Money is a way that you can exert control, influence, but primarily control. You can pull a lot of strings with money, but primarily power. If you have the money, to some extent you have the power, you make all the decisions. But power can also be physical power. Physical in terms of you have a man and a woman, and in a physical contest, who wins that? Who wins that every single time? And I'm probably quite influenced by I've written over 100 books, and over again the same theme comes through, which is intimate partner homicide, and it's invariably the weaker sex that dies. Doesn't just lose that battle, but dies. And then somebody takes over her voice, invariably the perpetrator, and says, this is the last time I saw her, this was the last thing she said, this is the last thing she did, and there's no one to contradict that because she's not there anymore, except sometimes cell phone data, except sometimes the timeline and other things. But that happens over and over again, is that you have the male in this equation, not always, but most of the time, exerting his power. I'm talking about in criminal cases that I've dealt with. And then after she's died, then he also steals her voice and says, she didn't fight back, or we had sex just before it happened, really. Did you? And all these other claims. And in other words, part of that power is taking her voice and stealing her voice. And that's kind of how I got into true crime in the first place, was taking up the voice of someone whose voice was totally eclipsed at trial, and I sat in on trial. well, I'm not going to go into that because that's a story on its own. But that was how I came into true crime, and it feels like the same thing is happening here. That her voice is being taken away from her, even when she's testifying, and I feel like I can't really. I can't really let that just happen in good conscience, without doing something, given how many times I've seen the same thing happening. And it's happening in another high-profile case right now as well, right? And you might say, well, that's how you biased. You programmed to see the female as the victim, and in this case, it's a male. But invariably, in these circumstances I'm talking about, the male does have all the power. And I think the arguments I'm seeing all the time is that, no, she's got all the power. She's physically pushing him around. She's physically winning these physical battles. Then, are you new to true crime then? Like, have you not seen how over and over again the woman always loses these battles? And it was something she said. She said, we would argue and they would argue as equals. She would shout, he would shout. There would be a lot of that. But the moment it passed a certain point, and in her version, what she alleged, then she would lose. And that's, to me, it's so obvious it's a cliche, but there so many of you out there who say, no, he's the victim here. And I'm like, okay. What has happened in the UK, the trials that she supported what the Sun said, the Sun newspaper, and won the first trial, and then he appealed and she won the second. That seems to add a bit of meat to that argument, right? Anyway, I also think what we're seeing right now is Johnny Depp exerting power. We're seeing hashtag Johnny, justice for Johnny. We're seeing hashtag Johnny is innocent. I don't know if I've ever seen hashtag Amber Heard is innocent trending. I don't know if I've ever seen that. I don't know if I've ever seen hashtag Amber Heard just on its own trending. I may have missed it. But I've seen Johnny Depp trending, and I've seen Johnny Depp is innocent trending, and I've seen Johnny Depp, and I've seen Amber Turd trending, right? And in terms of social media power, he's got far, far more power than she does. The video I made before this was that social media has actually already decided that Johnny Depp has won this case. That's how powerful Johnny Depp's persona is, right? That's what social media is saying, and that's what the media reporting social media is saying. But that's also talking about his power compared to her power. And so to me, I don't understand the argument that he's the victim and she's this all-powerful bully, when that's not what it looks like to me, but that's a lot of what you guys are arguing. And then that brings us to the next part of the unequally yoked dynamic, and it's quite an important one. What is his career? What is his career vis-a-vis hers career? I'm talking about when they meet, and we've already gone there. I basically said that when he met her, he was really a big celebrity, able to fund his own movie, and he basically cast her in that movie. So he was really almost at the top of the mountain, and she was kind of at the bottom or at the foothills. So in terms of career, when they met, they were totally unequally yoked. You know, it was very, very like a disequilibrium, right? And a career is a big factor in the success of relationships. If you both at the same stage in your career, that can help you guys stay together. But if one of you is finding your feet in a career and you've got to be transferred and you're not sure about this and you're going to change careers, compared to the other one who is settled in the career and you really need support, you need to kind of, what's the word? You need to kind of, you are on fire and you need to just be allowed to do your thing. That's totally different to someone who's sort of starting and they're unsure, if that makes sense. So in other words, Johnny Depp had momentum on his side. She didn't really have momentum. His career is here and hers is just starting, right? But I think you've also got to ask the question, so many years later, where's his career and where's her career? And I think you could make the argument, especially thanks to Aquaman, her career has shot up. I mean, to be honest, I saw Aquaman, I loved Aquaman, and I didn't actually know it was Amber Heard, but I liked the character that I saw. And I really loved that song, the Roy Orbison song, where she and Aquaman are on that sort of, I don't know if it's the Italian coast, and she eats a rose, and that whole thing I just thought is really, I've watched that over and over again. I just think it's a beautiful scene. And I didn't even know that was Amber Heard, but it really made a big impression on me. And in any event, so her career is really, thanks especially to that movie, is hitting the big time, whereas his career at the same time, it's like someone just said now, she's helped to ruin his career, or I think you can see that in two ways, either that she's helped to ruin his career or he's helped to ruin his career, or both. I don't know. Maybe what's happening now might negatively impact her career. I don't know. But this court case isn't over. But the point to make is just the difference between when they met, his career was up here, hers was down there. Where are we today? It's almost inverted. I think you could potentially argue that her career from here on could keep going up, and his career from this moment on, I don't know, it could be wrong, but it could go down. It's going down. It was going down before this trial happened, which is maybe why it's happening. And so I'm just using the career, as a measurement of Unequally Yoked to describe how some of those dynamics can be in play. And so I hope through having this discussion, I hope through just touching on this one theme, it's only one theme, but raising these issues that I'm sure you've experienced in your own relationships, age gaps, if someone's addicted or on certain substances and you aren't, or you are and they aren't, different money dynamics, different fame or status, different power dynamics, different career. All of these things have a different way of pulling on the spider web of the relationship dynamic. Sometimes they pull in a good way and sometimes they pull in a bad way. Sometimes most of them pull in a good way, sometimes most of them pull in a bad way. But all of it is part of this complex thing that is a couple. And I'm seeing just so much absolute certainty, black and white thinking. And I'm like, it's not so simple. It's really not so simple. And I don't know how many of you watched the video that I made prior to this, where I talk about the nature of reality, and you might think, and I think other creators might scoff at that, like, this guy's really losing the plot. He's talking about Blade Runner 2049 and the nature of reality. But it's so important when you are looking at something like this. that you are saying in absolute ways, this is what I'm seeing, I don't see tears, this is what I'm seeing. Is your concept of reality accurate? Not just in terms of Johnny Depp, not just in terms of Amber Heard, but yourself. Like, are you able to look in the mirror and see who you are and what you're doing and where your life is going? I mean, when you're looking at these people, if you're looking at it accurately or not, can you apply that same intuition to yourself? If you believe so strongly that something's the case with someone that you're seeing here, are you those beliefs as well supported in your own life? Kathy Chase says, me too is important. Nisi says, we need to stay in reality when watching this. All of us. Yvonne Phillips says, even if Johnny never made another something and she worked the rest of her life, Amber would never reach Johnny's cult status. Well, I don't know. I think you're underestimating the power of comic book movies. That's just my personal opinion. DL says something there. Well, I don't know. I've actually been in that situation myself. So I don't know if I ever said that because I've been in that situation myself. So I'm now going to go through a couple of your comments and a couple of comments I've come across. One of them, so these are some of the best and worst questions and comments I've come across. One of them was, why was this case filed in Virginia? Have any of you seen that discussed anywhere? Anyone know the answer to that? Thanks a lot, DL. Appreciate that. I appreciate the super chat and what you said there. Thank you. Anyone know why this case was filed in Virginia? Different laws because of the number of jurors. That's what I understand. Kathy says, I think it was in Virginia due to where the article was published, where the Washington Post was published, and that's how I understood it. But it's quite a good question. Another question or comment that I saw on the Law and Crime channel, the channel that's largely been one of the main live streamers of this case, as I'm sure you're aware. I saw this coming up there. It was, why don't they testify? I'm not sure if this is what was asked exactly, but it was something like this. Why don't they testify while taking a lie detector test? Or why don't they testify like while being plugged into a polygraph, right? Someone was saying that because there's this incredible sense of, is he telling the truth? Is he telling the truth about that? Or is she telling the truth? Daniela says Virginia is a commonwealth. Is she telling the truth about this? Was that true, right? And so why don't they testify while kind of being plugged into a polygraph machine, right? Choice says, which is better, jury or judge? That's a tough question. I think it depends on the case. I've seen cases here in South Africa, we don't have juries at all. And I've seen cases here where the judge has been spot on, and that's one person, and the judge has been spot on, and the judge has been spot on. And I've seen cases where the judge has been totally wrong. It's like, whoa. So then you sort of feel like, okay, I mean, when the judge gets it spot on, you're like, awesome, I love our system here. But when they get it wrong, you're like, cheapers, I think we need more people to balance out the error. So I think it's a difficult one. But coming back to this question, why don't they testify while being plugged into a polygraph? And then the response to that was, well, polygraphs are unreliable. I beg to differ. In my experience writing about true crime, I've seen polygraphs that are more often than not reliable. I'm not saying it's scientific and it's absolutely not foolproof, because you can actually study up on how to beat a polygraph, how to get your baseline where it needs to go, right? You can use that through different strategies. But most of the cases I've covered, I've found polygraphs to be pretty reliable. And I think it's an excellent tool in the toolbox of law enforcement. But it's inadmissible in court. It's not 100% reliable. And so I think this is a fantastic question, but I've got a totally different way of answering it. I would say I would love to see court cases in the future where you can do that, where they've developed the technology, and maybe one can ask Elon Musk to look into it, or Bill Gates, or some folks who are very au fait with that side of computers, artificial intelligence, because I don't think it's that difficult to measure human responses in a way that a sophisticated algorithm can be accurate enough that it meets a standard to be met in court. And I personally find there's too little reliance in court of things like animations, of things like photos, things like texts, things like social media. When I was covering trials, the whole time I was thinking, why aren't you using this more? Why are you describing this when you can show an animation? And I'm pleased to see some of that happening already in the Alec Baldwin case. But technology really needs to show up in the courtroom more. It's already there, but it needs to sort of come there a lot more than it already is. And so I would really say we need polygraphs to be updated and upgraded to the point that maybe in some circumstances they are admissible, maybe to some extent they become more reliable. But I really don't think you should dismiss it and just say, nah, it's something that can really be used and should be part of what the Department of Justice and what the law profession honestly look into, because it can make things a lot easier. And another thing is, can you find a way to replace what cadaver dogs do with some kind of scientific instrument? Or can you get dogs to communicate on the stand where they can answer a question yes or no? I know it sounds crazy, but think about the possibilities, technology, if you just allow it to do that, right? Then another thing that I don't think has been recognized, and I say this as someone who studied law and who sat in courtrooms and all that kind of thing. I've seen a lot of you, maybe not a lot of you, but I've seen a lot of people just mocking and undermining and criticizing and disbelieving and just rubbishing the supposed display of emotion of Amber Heard, right? And I don't think you recognize what's happening in the legal context. So you might look at that and say, ha ha ha, I don't believe it. Ha ha ha, she's an actress, and that's what you see. What I don't think you see is, in a court, remorse is recognized as mitigation of sentence. So if you want to be cynical, you could say that her lawyers have asked her or told her to be as emotional as possible because she's only got $1 million and the law does recognize remorse in mitigation of sentence. So the law may say, you know what, you did do something wrong here, but you appeared to be sorry about what happened, or seems like you went through a lot. So we're going to mitigate your sentence. We're going to give you less than what you otherwise would deserve, right? The other way to look at it is how much remorse is she showing, or how much trauma, whatever the word is you want to say, emotion is she showing compared to Johnny Depp, who seems to be laughing and joking. And some people seem to think that's fine. You know, in a court, it's okay to joke and whatever. Have you ever sat in a court and seen someone make jokes? I've sat in courtrooms where you make a joke and you're out and you're never going to come back again. But now what happens when your defendant or whatever, if that's going on, right? Anyway, the point is, remorse is something that can actually be recognized in a legal sense and can actually play a part in this case. And whether you want to recognize it as manufactured or not, it's nevertheless quite important. And I'm obviously aware in the Jodi Arias case, I think she said she was sorry and she sort of sniffed a little bit. And the judge said, I've taken into account your, I think she said, apparent remorse. And then she gave her no credit because she didn't, first of all, she didn't think it was enough. She didn't think maybe that it was sincere, but she also didn't think it had any bearing on, or enough bearing on what she felt was a very cruel crime. So that's the other side of it. So someone's got to decide if it's genuine remorse or not, but also is it present or not. And I think one can apply that to both parties in this case. Is he showing remorse? Is she showing remorse? So if you say both of them did something, okay, is he showing remorse? So, and is she showing remorse? How much is she showing? How much is he showing? Whatever. Then another one is, how does Amber remember everything from 8 years ago? I thought this was quite an interesting question. I can tell you that I had 2 arguments with a girlfriend that I remember these arguments vividly. I can tell you which city I was in, which property I was in, where I was standing, what I did afterwards, what the situation was, what followed after that. I know in the one case I left and I went and watched a movie, and it was an animated movie. It was actually one of those Ice Age movies. I can tell you in a lot of detail what happened and what followed and what the context was. And that was 10 years ago. That's even longer. And I don't have a photographic memory, but I remember it based on the feeling that it was associated with. And I've just made a video where I've told you how memory works. Memory isn't so much to do with details, to do with feeling. And so those things that really hurt you in a significant way, you do tend to remember quite well. And so that to me supports, compared to what this person's saying. So if you've gone through something really traumatic, you tend to remember it for a long time compared to something that's not so traumatic. In other words, something that really hurt you, you remember. Something that wasn't painful, wasn't, a big deal, you don't remember. So that's, to me, quite a strong answer to that criticism. Another thing is, sometimes when something painful like that happens to you, you tell that same story to yourself, or you remember it yourself, or you tell it to other people, and in that way it keeps that memory alive. And so another question that came up is, will the jurors read up about this case? And that to me is one that I'd really like to know the answer to. I also feel like, can you really leave it to the honor system? Can you really leave it to the jurors to decide for themselves? Am I going to look on my phone? Am I going to read the news? Am I going to, thanks a lot, Stephanie. Am I going to do the right thing, or is curiosity going to kill the cat? Because can you imagine if jurors start looking at what is on social media? It's absolutely going to influence them. And is that right? Someone else asked, would you hire a body language professional when testifying? And someone responded that body language is the absolute arbiter of truth. And I think you get people who are good at body language and bad at body language. And a lot of people are saying that I suck at body language. I don't know, I can't tell that someone's not telling the truth. Of course, that means that you are an expert. But regardless of that, I'm pretty sure that they're both millionaires. I'm pretty sure that they do have body language experts. I'm pretty sure she was told to look at him while he was testifying and sometimes write things down. And also vice versa, that he must not look at her while she's testifying. I'm pretty sure that was legal strategy. Some people will say, I think that was great legal strategy on his side, and I'll say, I think it's terrible. And I've said that before. Another expert with 30 years of experience said that on law and crime. I said it before. I thought that's terrible legal strategy. It doesn't look good. And then a couple of hours later, an expert said the exact same thing on TV after she testified. And then he said, no one has actually spoken about this. So body language is important. And again, you might say, you don't know what you're talking about, but that's exactly what that guy said. And it was about body language. So, make of that what you will. What this guy basically argued is that if you're confident in your case, you'll look up. And I understand there's certain situations where, I know in Oscar Pistorius' trial, when certain things were discussed, he would look down. But that's different. He's trying to, you've got to ask yourself, is he trying to make himself out to be the victim, or can him looking up appear aggressive? And so is that what's going on? But I think this is not a situation where one person's on trial. This is actually two people that are on trial, and whose version is true and whose version isn't. And so with one version, you've got someone who's talking and the other one's looking at him the whole time. And with the other one, you've got someone talking. And the question is, are you afraid to look at that person who's right in front of you? Or have you been told not to? Or can't you? And bear in mind, the jury are just on this one side of him. They can see potentially his responses if he's going to get kind of emotional about certain things that are said. So maybe you don't want to. Or why would you not want to? Lawnchair Detective, good to see you here. Something I want to ask you guys is, so let's just do a poll. So yeah, you've got to put the person's name in. So I want to ask you guys a question in terms of when Johnny Depp testified and in terms of when Amber Heard testified. When Johnny Depp testified, how often did he say what she said to him verbatim? In other words, how often did he say, I said XYZ and she said ABC, right? Compared to how many times did Amber Heard say, Johnny Depp shouted this or said this or whatever, and then I said this or that, right? So did you guys pick that up? Did you pick up when he spoke about all these incidents? What did she say, and what did she say verbatim, and when she testified, what did he say verbatim? Beverly Lawyer says I wasn't there. Now, what's quite interesting with that is I don't remember objections for hearsay when that was done. In other words, if she said that Johnny shouted XYZ. I don't remember her being stopped, and that's hearsay. I may have missed it, and I think the reason for that is either it was established in the UK trial, or it's come up somewhere else. Maybe it was part of a recording or something. But you would imagine if you couldn't prove that somebody said something, you would say objection, hearsay, something like that. But the basic point I'm trying to make is my understanding was, and I could be wrong, that's why I'm kind of asking you guys, my understanding is Amber gave quite a few verbatim scenarios where she said, these were his words exactly, and it was that one, and then it was that one, and it was this one. I'm not going to repeat them here. I did write them down because they kind of filled with expletives and that kind of thing. But she did it quite a few times where she repeated verbatim what he said. And I don't know whether I can remember Johnny Depp doing that, unless I missed it, where she said verbatim, in this intense situation, blah, blah, blah. And so just in a general sense, I find that very compelling, because when it's a very extreme situation that is traumatic and life-changing and shocking, but just like shocks you to the core, like pulls the carpet from under your feet, you can often remember those words your whole life. I had a girlfriend that I really loved a lot, and I can remember some of the things she said that I've never forgotten, verbatim. One of the things she said is, you don't know how to love a person, right? And that really hurt, and I've never forgotten it, and I can remember it verbatim. Another thing that she said was, I remember when our relationship had actually ended, but I didn't really know it. I was the last to know. And she phoned me. Anyway, I remember the details absolutely coming through the door, the phone ringing, getting this feeling that this is big, knowing it was her on the phone, picking up the phone. And then she was phoning to say, I mustn't come and see her. I've just been overseas for a long time. And then I said, what's going on? She said, I'm confused. And I'll never, ever forget those words. She didn't want to say what was really going on. I mean, at that stage, she was already in another relationship. But instead of telling the truth, she said, I'm confused. And obviously, I didn't know what I'm confused meant. I had to start trying to figure it out. But I'll never forget those words, and I remember them verbatim. And I can recite more and more and more of these things. Another thing that I remember her saying was, we were both overseas at the time, and she said, Nick, I'm not going to put my life on hold for you. And I was like, what does that mean? Like, I'm not asking you to put your life on hold. But I remember that verbatim. And so what I'm trying to get at is, when you can remember things like that verbatim, certainly to me, that resonates with, wow, that sounds real. Now, I think you can argue, if you really want to, but I think you can argue, she's an actress, so she maybe has lines where it comes out of a movie. And maybe that's your argument. Maybe it's a good argument. Maybe you can put doubt in a jury's mind. But that resonates with me out of my personal experience, where you can remember these horrible, painful things your entire life because of what that person meant to you and what these statements meant, or you didn't know what they meant, and you ran them through your mind 1,000 times, trying to figure them out, and then eventually did figure them out. So that's kind of my side. I kind of wanted to come on live in a way, it's like where angels fear to tread, but I kind of felt like a lot of you don't remember that I'm actually a person, and I'm a man, and I've got my set of circumstances, and I'm operating from those, and I'm aware of what you guys think, and I don't like only have one view and I refuse to divert from it, but it's a view based on a lot of information. It's based on listening and thinking about certain things and imagining certain things and looking at my own experience and looking at my knowledge from true crime and looking at what is said in court. And I don't really want to go to another YouTube channel to see what they're getting beyond the courtroom. I don't want to go outside the court to find the truth. I want to go inside the court to find the truth. If you want to go outside the court to find the truth, great. But I still believe in justice, and I believe in finding justice in a courtroom, not in the courts of social media. And I want to encourage you guys to do the same thing. Because it's a horrible world where the court of the true court becomes the court of public opinion. Please, let's keep the court, and let's try and respect the court, and let's let the court proceedings proceed and listen, not chatter while things are actually being, like as a journalist, part of your job as a journalist sitting in court isn't to sit there and I don't know, overtake everything. Your job is to sit there and listen, to take notes, to scribble down notes as quickly as you can, and to absorb it all so that you know what happened. In other words, you are there as a sponge a little more. I feel like what I do is a little bit more than the other journalists, because the other journalists will simply repeat, almost parrot what happened in court, what they were wearing, what they said, what was decided at the end. I feel like as a journalist, as someone who studied the law, I also want to try and interpret stuff and see beyond what the journalists see. I want to see the stuff that is not being said, the stuff that is not being acknowledged. What is the stuff, the obvious thing that is happening in court that isn't happening? So, for example, in the Johnny Depp case, she's right in front of you. Why are you not looking at her? That was just my observation. And you might say whatever you say, but the very next day he did look at her a couple of times. He wasn't wearing his glasses as much. He seemed a bit more engaged in what was going on. He also seemed a bit more emotional in what was going on. In the first day, he was totally shut down. He seemed to be looking down. It seemed like he didn't even know. It was like he was totally ignoring her and he totally dismissed her. I see I'm about 15 minutes past my deadlines. Is Stephanie still here? Kathy Chase says she isn't with Elon. Elon's a South African. Stephanie, are you still here? I don't see Stephanie. I know Stephanie had us to work early tomorrow to do an additional shift. Caterpillar, new sub, happy to be here. Thanks, Caterpillar, for joining. Kathy Chase, what didn't you know? Choice says, I like the South African accent. Not everybody does. Stephanie is with Elon. I think Stephanie has left. But anyway, Stephanie, in your absence, thank you for moderating. I think Stephanie's got to be up early. Stephanie's on the East Coast. She's in Connecticut, so it's much later there than for many of the rest of you. Patricia Burns says she got 7 million. Terry Dean says, I'd love to chat quick about cross. Terry says, did you see my super chat? I don't know if I did. Stephanie's still here. Tears are welling up in my eyes. I'm sorry I'm laughing, but it's just like, I don't think you're even here, and the next thing I see that. Okay. I appreciate your perspective, and I think most who are here with us tonight respect your thoughts and opinions, even if they disagree. Thank you for sharing during the live. Thank you. Stephanie, I want to let you go. I know you've got to be up early. I want to thank you very much for being here and for moderating. I always feel like it's a safer space when you're here. I'm also sorry that you've got to postpone CrimeCon for tomorrow, but there's something pretty exciting that we're going to talk about very quickly. It'll probably be a 45-minute live. Barry Morphew. I don't know if you guys know, he was on Good Morning America. His daughters were also on Good Morning America. But there's some really interesting new information, certainly new to me, that I think is worth sharing with you guys. So I'll either do that as a live or just a short sort of 8-minute video. Stephanie says, this was a meaningful, worthwhile experience tonight. I'm glad to hear that. Thanks a lot. If it was for one of you, then I'm happy. Terry Dean, did I miss a super chat from Terry Dean? Terry Dean says, okay, here it is. Interested to see how Amber Heard holds up during cross. Seems strategic to have the pretty female lawyer who has been cozying up to Johnny Depp do the questioning. So I think that's a great point. It is going to be interesting to see how well she holds up. And I think that is really the critical question here. If she holds up well, then it means her story is solid and credible. And if she doesn't hold up well, then it may mean that it's not. And I think part of the theater that is the law, because some of it is theater. I mean, some of it supposed to be the scientific method and evidence, but certainly a jury trial is more theater than, for example, when there's just a judge. It's more of a show in a jury trial situation than in a judge situation. That's why I think South African trials are not quite as interesting and colorful and elaborate and emotional as American trials, jury trials. But the other side of it is that you create the impression that, so even if Amber Heard does handle the cross-examination well, the prosecution might create the impression that she didn't. And so, in other words, you can take a truth and make it an untruth, or you can take a statement and invert it and suddenly, if that makes sense. A good example is, did Amber Heard cry? And then your answer is, no, she didn't. So you see tears, but no, the truth is she didn't cry. Okay. And then the other one is she did cry, but that's photoshopped, so she didn't cry. So in other words, you take something that is a fact or demonstrable, or you can see it, and then you just turn it into something else. And that does happen. You can sometimes just convince someone. It's almost like sleight of hand or a conjuring trick. Even though you see something, if enough people say the same thing, or you say it often enough, you then unsee it. So it's possible that the prosecution can convince you that whatever they want to convince you of. It's possible, but it's more important that they do that to the jury. So they might say, I don't know. But anyway, that's really the issue, is ultimately how's she going to do on cross-examination. And I think the bottom line is, I think whatever the outcome of this is, we'll likely see an appeal. So I think whether Johnny Depp wins or Amber Heard wins, whatever win means, I think this case will likely be appealed. I honestly think whatever the outcome is, and I think I know what the outcome is, but whatever the outcome is, I think we'll see an appeal to this case. I don't know if I've answered your question, Terry. When you say it seems strategic to have the pretty female lawyer, is she going to be doing the cross-examination? A woman cross-examining a woman may be a good strategy. It might be. It certainly probably would come across less, it's like we are sort of equals and I want to know what you went through and I'm not sure if I believe you. So in terms of that, I think it would be quite a good thing. I do think it's quite interesting that you have male and female lawyers on both sides who cover different territory. I think that's definitely interesting from a strategic aspect. Anything else you guys want me to look at? I want to kind of wrap up. Nisi says the cross will be difficult to watch. So far, I need 10-minute breaks every half hour. I'm just really glad that. Honestly, I'm really, really glad that nothing's happening for a week. I'm glad. I'm not really glad. Thought Criminal says nobody could answer me where the DV advocates are. Kathy Chase says Depp has won the public or I guess the social media side, but not sure Hollywood. And the court, I think, would find. Okay, interesting. Mary Ann says, who cares about their wedding day? I think they do. I think they care about their wedding day, and I still think he does, and I still think she does. And I think if you say, who cares? Well, you can say who cares. That's your level of sensitivity or insensitivity, and that's my level of sensitivity or insensitivity. McClare Creation says, goodbye, peace. Good to see you. So I want to thank those who've contributed super chats. Appreciate it. Stephanie, especially super chatting and moderating. And we wish Stephanie well. She's got to do like a double shift tomorrow, based on today and tomorrow. And apparently lots going on in terms of her work. So we wish her well and look forward to, I hope you haven't forgotten what has happened at CrimeCon. But clearly, I'm sure you've rested by now. But anyway, let me know when you want to do that, and maybe you can do it Monday or Tuesday or something. Remember, Sunday will be Van Gogh letters. Tomorrow, the Morphew case, maybe in a live. It depends on a couple of things. Tuesday, okay, sounds good. Okay, guys, take care. I think it's late wherever you are in America. It's probably pretty late. So I'm going to let you go. Take care, stay safe, sweet dreams, and I'll see you guys next time. Oh, happy Mother's Day to, I think, pretty much all of you, all the mothers in the house. Happy Mother's Day. Hope you guys are spoiled rotten. Hope you are appreciated. Hope you're recognized for the wonderful jobs that you do. I no longer have a mother, so I really know what I'm missing. And I hope those around you know what they have in you. So I hope you have a special day. I hope you're spoiled. I hope you get breakfast in bed, or you take it out to lunch, or just that you have a wonderful time with those close to you. Hopefully your family are around you. So all the best for that. I'm glad that I've done this because I felt like in a way I've needed to clear the air, and so I'm pretty glad that's done and dusted, and you can see where I'm coming from. Let's see how things go going forward. Susan Becker, thanks a lot, and thanks for all those rockets. Okay, that's my piece done, and I don't know where Timmy is, but it's 7 o'clock in the morning here, so the sun actually came up an hour and 20 minutes ago, so I might take Timmy for a walk. Thanks, guys. See you again. Thanks for making it tonight. Ciao. Daniela, thanks a lot. Appreciate it.